Fantastic. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. As you can see, the studio is starting to take shape slowly but surely. So by Monday, everything should be done. The only big thing that I'm still very worried about is whether I'm going to get the lights right. Lights have always been my nemesis since the very first episode. But let's see how that goes. There's some amazing things going up behind me today. And then it's fitting the lights, which is brand new types of lights, new things that work with apps and all sorts of weird and wonderful things. So let's see how that goes, because I have no clue what I'm doing. And secondly, just holding thumbs. We'll see. Anyway, warm welcome this morning. Really excited to have Tim Slatter on the show finally. And we are going to be chatting everything about communication with clients. But as the title of this episode really says, this for me, when I think about communications, there's communications and there's communications. It's almost like shouting on the one hand and really connecting with people in a way that really hits them where it should hit them in a good way. And they hear you and they talk back to you and there's engagement and all that good stuff. So that's what I'm really looking forward to getting into with Tim this morning. And we're going to be chatting a little bit later in the show. But as you know, I don't do this alone because that won't be fun. So we have Lelani. Lelani is here all the way from somewhere, from Pretoria, I assume. So she's here on behalf of the Financial Planning Institute, sharing with us all the latest and greatest news from the profession and things that you and I need to know about. I just saw yesterday, as a CPD provider, we got this email with a long list of documents that went out from the FSCA for that they're looking for comments. So there's always, comments and input on draft regulations and things that they're busy with. Mind-blowing anyway. So we'll see what Lelani shares with us this morning. And then we have Igno. Like every time I blink, Igno's back on the show. It's brilliant. So Igno all the way from Bloemfontein. And today he's talking about For the Love of Failure. I already love it. Then I'm going to do a quick tech tip. And after that, a couple of good announcements, great announcements, amazing announcements, those kinds of things. And then I get into the conversation with Tim. So thank you very much for joining us. If you're here live, I just want to say a massive thank you. We really appreciate it. For those of you that show up every single Friday or most Fridays or every now and then as well, just thank you so much. Joining us live creates a whole different experience for you and for us and for everybody. So thank you very much. And if you're watching on demand, a massive thank you to you as well. We have crossed 1,500 subscribers. I think we're on 1,509. I don't obsess over the numbers, but I do see them every now and then. So it is really amazing to see that we continue to grow. So thank you so much. If you haven't subscribed yet, please consider hitting that subscribe button. And then, obviously, if you find value, we would really love if you can just hit that like button. It does help us a lot getting the word out. But also just copy the link and share it with others that need to see what we are talking about. So thank you very much for helping us out in that regard. And let me say a warm good morning this morning. Sure, we've got loads of people already in here. We've got Terence in first. Even when I made the post that Tim's going to be on the show, he was the very first one to say, looking forward to this one. So thank you very much, Terence. We've got David in the house. David Kopp, good morning. Nice to see you. Hope you're doing well. Goeiemôre, Johan Oosthuizen. Die vlag van Pretoria hoog, Salome. Good morning. Nice to see you as well. Thank you for joining us. Willem Bester. Good morning. Good morning. Tim is also saying here, good morning to everybody from Cape Town. You'll see him on the screen soon. Alfred, good morning. Nice to see you. Thank you for saying hi. A lot of people from Pretoria this morning. Liana, good morning. Nice to see you as well. We've got Jonita Moelman, 2 KZN people in a row. We've got Nico van Wyk, good morning. Goeiemôre. We've got Vuledzani. Good morning, Vuledzani. Nice to see you as well. Joseph van Tonder in the Free State. Good morning. Nice to see you. I can't remember who Northern Cross Wealth is. Let me know who you are. But good morning. Thank you for joining us. Then we've got Nkosana. Thank you very much for saying hi. Nice to see you again. Really appreciate it. Marie Tappen. Good morning. Goeiemôre. Says, go Tim, you make magic with words. Great to be a part of. Fantastic. Nico, is it only me or is there no sound? I don't know. Now there's no sound. So what happened to the sound? Because everything is on. That's very, very weird. Can people just let me know, is the sound fine? I see Lelani shows that it's fine. So maybe just let me know. Okay. Fantastic. So let me continue on faith this morning. We've got Grant in the house. Good morning, Grant. Nice to see you. We've got Zia Bukwa. good morning, nice to see you. Gary Wilson, good morning, nice to see you. Thank you for saying hi. Francis Neetling, goeiemorgen, nice to see you as well. Champ, my coffee verrassing is lekker. I'm glad you got it and that you're enjoying it. Shamaine, good morning, nice to see you. We've got Razan in the house. Good morning, Razan, nice to see you. Good morning, Carol, nice to see you. Surieta is in the house. Good morning, Surieta. Sorry, I'm running quicker and quicker because I'm stealing people's time now. We've got Nivout in the house. Good morning, Nivout. We've got Johan Piens in the house. Good morning, Johan. You must still sort me out with your surname. How do I say that correctly? You're not helping me out. Mary, good morning. Nice to see you as well. We've got Neil Phillips. Good morning. We've got Ferdi. Good morning. Ferdi, Cindy. Good morning. Sorry, guys, if you can't like, I'm just going to go by names. How's it, Adrian? Nice to see you, Johan. Good morning. Nice. Thanks for saying hi. Carol, they sound now sounds good. I don't know what happened. Maybe something just went a little bit wrong. Fantastic. Who else have we got here? We've got Marcel. Good morning, and Haneri. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, let's get into the show. Thank you very much for saying hi. I really appreciate it. And over to Lelani for the news.
Yes, good morning, Francois, and everybody online. And thank you for your time and making time for everybody this morning. So, Francois, I can hear you perfectly. Let's then jump straight into it from El Durain here in Centurion. So, two high-level stories that I'll jump into is the Supreme Court of Appeal has reversed the High Court decision that held Old Mutual Unit Trust fund managers liable for over 1.7 billion in losses incurred by the Living Hands Umbrella Trust due to the trust's action in relation to the Fidentia scandal. Now, that was a few years ago, for those who remember. The Supreme Court of Appeal judges found that the plaintiffs failed to establish Old Mutual Trust legal duty, wrongfulness, negligence, and causation in the case. Now, that was the exact reason why causation, legal and factual causation, why the FA's ombudsman, Advocate John, dismissed a lot of the Sharemax cases. But the judges in this case emphasized that there was no general right against economic loss, and the plaintiffs could not demonstrate that Old Mutual Unit Trust managers had a specific duty to prevent the losses. Moreover, the Supreme Court of Appeal highlighted that imposing such a liability would be unreasonable, contrary to public policy, and could lead to unspecified liability for financial institutions. Consequently, the judges dismissed the plaintiff's claims and upheld the appeal with costs. So that is a story on the Supreme Court of Appeal that has reversed the High Court's decision that held Old Mutual Unit Trust managers liable for that 1.7 billion in that Fidentia scandal. Then very quickly on Marcus Jooste. What would a Friday be without a story on Marcus Jooste? So on Marcus Jooste, a previous colleague of Marcus received 6 years in a German jail. He is Sigmar Schmidt, age 65, and he was found guilty on 20 counts of tax evasion. For the sake of time, Franch, I'm going to quickly jump into the National Health Insurance Act 20 of 2023. For those who missed it, and I doubt that anybody missed it, the NHI was signed into law the 15th of May 2024. Now, I quickly worked through the act. It's not a massive act, but it is an act of a lot of substance. So there's 11 chapters, and then as normal, there's a schedule that deals with repealed and amended legislation affected by the NHI Act. So if we quickly look at a few highlights, if we look at Chapter 3, that part deals with the NHA fund from the establishment of the fund all the way to the powers of the fund. Chapter 5 deals with the CEO that will be appointed and what his or her responsibilities would be as CEO for the NHI. Then Chapter 8 deals with the general provisions applicable to the operations of the fund. And of particular interest is Section 33. Now, you would have seen that Adrian Gore, the CEO of Discovery, commented on Section 33. What that particular section reads, and it's quite short, it says once the national health insurance has been fully implemented, emphasis fully implemented, as determined by the minister through regulations in the Gazette, medical schemes may only offer complementary cover that services not reimbursed by the fund. Now, an example of that I've read is something like plastic surgery. Now, Adrian Gore, as I said, mentioned on that, and his view is that it's quite a few years before we'll see the NHI coming through in its full swing. Then chapter 10 deals with the financial matters. So everybody's asking, where's the money that's going to fund NHI going to come from? Well, short answer is tax. So Section 48 says that the revenue would consist of money to which the fund is entitled, any interest on the returns of investments made by the fund, any money paid erroneously to the fund. I found this quite interesting. Any money paid in error to the fund, in the opinion of the minister, cannot be refunded. Any bequest or donation received by the fund, and any money to which the fund may become legally entitled. A little bit more on the taxes. This is where there would be taxes, general revenue, including the shifts of funds to the fund, but then also reallocating of funding for medical scheme tax credits paid to the various medical schemes toward the funding of NHI. And then a payroll tax would come in between the employer and employee, and then a surcharge on personal income tax introduced through a money bill. So tax. Then the transitional arrangements, it will be in 2 phases. Phase 1 already kicked off. It's from 2023 to 2026. And then the overall objective of the first phase is to continue strengthening the health system, including aligning human resources with user needs, developing relevant legislation, establishing financial institutions, etc., and purchasing healthcare services for vulnerable groups such as children and the old age. Then phase 2 will kick off 2026 to 2028. And the objective there is to continue with the health system strengthening, mobilizing additional resources, and they will then begin to selective contracting of those healthcare services from private providers. So there's a lot of noise about NHI at the moment, but I think the most important for us to maybe focus on is the funding. What will that look like? At this point in time, Francois and team, it would appear it's via taxes, especially those medical tax credits, etc. And then also that it's a phased approach that already kicked off in 2023 all the way to 2028. Then in closing, if you've not registered for the FBI's R&I workshop, which is next week, the 23rd of May, please do so. Registrations are closing on Monday. We would love to see you there. We have a wonderful list of speakers and topics that we will cover. And Francia, you're one ahead of me. I've not seen that CPD communication, but I will find it. On that note, blessings to you and the team and your family, Francia. Goodbye.
Brilliant stuff. Thank you very much, Lalani. Appreciate that. Yeah, I don't know if I'm supposed to get that email, but I did. Anyway, so let's see how this goes further. Next up, we have Igno. And as I said, Igno is going to talk a little bit about For the Love of Failure, like just Igno can. So Igno, if you're ready, here we go.
Good morning, everybody, and I hope that you've got a brilliant failure story to share with us this morning. When last did you fail? And that's a question we might have to ask ourselves more often. Maybe I should not fail to sit in front of the sun reflecting off that desk behind me. So a really interesting question, because what is failure? If you think about the last time you failed, it could have been at school. It could have been when you failed a test. I fail regularly when I enter a bookshop and I say to myself, I will not buy anything. And now that Amazon's open and they've got specials, I even fail at night lying in my bed saying, I will not buy anything. But failure is a really, really interesting thing, because it's all about the definition, isn't it? If you get 4 out of 20 for a test, you might say, I have failed, I am a failure. Or you could say, whoa, there's 16 things which I didn't know. I should make the time to get to know them. And therefore, there's growth opportunity in failure. There's several definitions of failure. I think Zig Ziglar says fail, F-A-I-L, stands for first attempt in learning. You're still learning. That's why you fail. I love Dennis Waitley's definition when he says failure is fertilizer. It stinks, but it makes you grow. And then there's failure is an event. It's not the person. So all those little definitions are out there, but still it stinks when you feel that you failed at something. And I want to ask you something. If you say I have failed, you make it personal, but I have failed too. If you just add the word to. So if I have failed a test, I have failed to pass a test. Is that now really something? I have failed to complete my degree in time. Well, maybe I now learn about discipline. So whenever there's learning, there is no failure. But I want to share with you a quick failure story, because I think it's something that made me think about failure. So many moons ago, I have a hobby as a, which is photography, which probably some of you know. And I was teaching on Saturdays, and I thought, I don't have this time to teach, but I had this great idea. What if people could learn in a fun way? And they could learn by playing a photography game. And I was looking at all kinds of games. And eventually I thought, okay, I've got this idea. And I created this game called Photo Fanatics, which is a card game which teaches you photography. It's always easy to create something. It's always very easy. People say that's difficult. To write a book, it's difficult, but it's easy. To create a game, it's difficult, but it's easy. What do I mean by that? It's difficult to have the discipline to create it. But the bloody difficult thing is the marketing. And I think all of you will know about it. So all of a sudden, there's that whole movie thing about build it and they will come. I had these games. They were stacked up in my garage. My wife looked at me. She says, what are we going to do with this? We're going to sell all of them. And then they got stuck and they were in the garage. And I looked at them and my wife looked at me and we looked at each other. And eventually a year or two passed. Some of them sold. Some of them were selling in Clarence in little shops, because all of us, I was on a new project, because I never thought through this whole process, which we often don't, do we? It's nice to do the creative side, but there's always the marketing side. And that's what our FAs are so brilliant at. And that's why we need to respect anyone who sells insurance. Anyway, a week ago, I was invited to a photography festival in Clarence. And on the Saturday morning, I had to do a photography workshop. And I thought, well, let me play the game with these people. And I shared on some of my social media, and I just don't want to share it too widely, a picture of these people laughing, and they were playing the game. And it then dawned on me, maybe it was not a commercial success, but what was my vision? My vision was that people should have fun when learning photography. And that was happening. Now, I never said in the vision how many times it should happen. And all of a sudden, what seemed to be a failure became, whoa, this might actually have been a success, not necessarily commercially, but in terms of achieving my vision. And my challenge to you today is to make sure that you have a vision, that you have something which you can fail at which eventually leads to success. But also, if we never fail, we never grow, isn't it? Because the moment that you fail, you actually push the boundaries to what you're capable of. And in order to succeed, you have to become capable of more. So if I fail an exam, I know too little, I have to study more, and I have to, and when I've studied more, I can retry. So my message today to you is reframe failure. There is no such thing as failure. There's only learning. And learning is tough. It's hard. And go about it and make sure that you understand that the hard stuff is what matters, because anyone can do stuff which is not hard. And that's the frame which Seth Godin gives us in the dip. If it's worth going through the dip, it's worth to go through the tough and hard stuff. And if you have to go through tough and hard stuff, you're going to fail. So yes, I invite you to imagine and visualize things which challenge you to such an extent that you fail on the way there. Remember, no one can climb a smooth mountain. You'll be sliding all the time. It's the rocks and the little ditches and those kinds of things that make the mountain worthwhile to climb and makes it climb worthy and climbable. So having shared all that, have a spectacular week in which you fail and enjoy your failures, celebrate your failures, and then move on, learn from them, and move from good to great. Thank you so much and have a lovely, lovely weekend.
Thank you very much. Ichnu, I always have a big smile on my face after listening to you. So thank you very, very much for that brilliant segment. Right. So next up, I'm going to do a very quick tech tip. And this is something that somebody's actually asked me about a couple of weeks ago. And I said, I think that's a great idea to show on the quick tech tip. So today I'm going to show you how to create something. I will share with it after this. Righty. So one of the things that I'm going to do is to quickly just show you how to create a QR code, because this is something that a lot of people are saying, like, everybody's using QR codes, but how the heck do they do that? So I'm going to just share my Canva. I'm going to use Canva. You know that I'm a big Canva lover. It's fine to say that. But I really use Canva a lot. In our business, we use Canva a lot. And I want to share with you just exactly how we do that. So here you go. So this is what Canva looks like. I'm using the desktop version of that just to show you briefly. You can obviously use it in your browser as well. You just go to canva.com. And I'm not sure, though. The one thing that I did not check is whether you need a pro account to do QR codes and have access to the apps. I don't think so, but I'm not sure. Maybe Tim can let me know here in the chat backstage. He probably knows, or anybody else knows. Let us know in the comments. But anyway, so what you'll find here is that on the left-hand side, so this is sort of the home page section of it. You'll see that there's a little link here in the menu that says apps. So when you go to apps, you can search for apps, right? And all I'm going to do is just input QR. I'm going to hit enter, and it brings up a plethora. There's my big English word for today. A plethora of options of how you can create different QR codes. I'm just going to go with this very simple one over here. You can see you can create really lovely things that are more styled and have logos in them or pictures in them or some look and feel, etc. So that you can go and play around with these. I just want to show you the concept of how easy it is to create QR codes. So I'm going to go with this one here that just says QR code. When you click on it, it'll give you a little bit of background information on it. And here we go. So it'll say this one is created by Canva themselves. So you can even see who's generated it. And it says it's perfect for business cards, etc., etc. But anyway, so it's asking you here at the bottom, use in an existing design. So you want to create the QR code and immediately add it to an existing design that you've already done, or you want to use it in a new design. So today I'm going to use it in a new design. I'm going to click on use in new design. I can choose a size. So I'm just going to choose logo just for the fun of it, because a logo, you can see there is 500 by 500. So it means it's a square. So I'm just going to do that. You can use any of the designs that you want. And there you go. So now we've got this blank little square. And it'll then on the left-hand side, the only thing it's going to ask you really is a link. So the URL. So I'm just going to put Propulsion, our website address. So just go Propulsion. If I'm spelling it correctly, .co.za, right? So that's the URL. Some customization. So this is where the different apps for QR codes will differ about what you can and can't do. But in this case, we've got a white background and we've got the foreground color. So the only thing I can change is that. So if I wanted to change this maybe to red, I can do that. Let's see what that is, right? And then I want to say, well, the foreground color then is going to be white, right? So we're not yet talking about the big square. We're talking about the QR code stuff. And then all I need to do is to click on generate code. And wow, there you go. Right. Red background, white foreground, and there you go. But Francois, does it work? Right. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to take my phone. I'm going to try. I hope that the camera will pick it up, that camera. I will try and show you. But what happens is that I'm just going to go into it, right? It'll say open in Chrome. I'm going to click the button and there you go. So I don't know if you can see. I can't see there, but it goes straight to my website. So it works immediately. So fantastic. So that's how simple it is to create a QR code using Canva. There's more things that you can do. There are other apps that you can also use for this inside of Canva that gives you more flexibility. So, for example, the QR codes that we use in many of our marketing, where people can scan and then go and learn more about the community, or they can learn more about the show. those were all done with other apps within Canva, and there's other third-party services that then link to that so that you can actually track and see how many times it was, not who, but how many times it was scanned, etc., etc. So there are those things as well. But I just wanted to give you just this is how simple it is to create your own QR code that you can then use on all of your documents. Now, obviously, if you want to save this, so maybe that's a question that we just need to look at. So I'm just going to bring this onto screen. So if you want to save this, it's as simple as obviously just give it a name. So just say this is the propulsion QR code, for example, so that when you start looking for it next time, you can find it easily. You can also resize this. So I can make this a little bit bigger because remember, that's already actually a small square. And then all I need to do is share, and I go download. I can choose different formats, PNG, JPEGs, etc. I prefer PNGs. And then I just say download. And this will then go and download this to a place on my machine where I can decide what do I want to do. So there's the name that I gave it. You can also change the name down here where it says file name. You save it, and then you can always include that in any of your documents, and you always know where that code is, because that's the thing I did in the beginning. I lost me bloody codes. So you don't want to do that. So do save them in a place or make sure that you name them appropriately in Canva so you're able to find them easily. And that's it for today's quick tech tips. So hopefully you will go and create a QR code for yourself and see how it works for you. Alrighty, so obviously we need to do a couple of announcements, so let's do that very quickly. I can tell you I'm very excited for my studio to get finished. We've done a nice design. My daughter did that for me. And we took what we had last time, like the last studio you saw when we were still in Krugersdorp, and we rehashed a little bit. So you're going to see it's going to be familiar, but it's going to be brand new, and it's going to be very, very cool. So really looking forward for you to see that next week. All right. So first off, it's time for the Global Financial Planning Conference. We're back. Now, many of you will not remember what this was about. Even when you said to us last year, this was the most incredible event that you ever attended, and you will definitely be there next year again. And then we say, oh, the Global Financial Planning Conference is happening. You're like, what's that? Okay, so this is what it is. One, it is all the people that are going through the Speaker and Influencer program from South Africa, as well as the UK, as well as other parts of the world. And they get to do a 10-minute slide-free talk live, virtually. So you're going to be able to watch. It's 2 full days. It's happening on the 11th and 12th of June, so a month from now, a little bit less than a month, actually. And they have the most incredible stories. And not only that, it's the fact that they've gone through the Speaker and Influencer program, completed it, and they are literally not afraid to face their fears, because public speaking is one of those things that are really daunting to a lot of people. And that's why they got involved. They had to put up their hand, right? It's a fully sponsored program that people go through, and at the end of it, they get to do this talk. And many of them, what we've seen in the past, go on and do other incredible things as a result. This is just half the first step almost, but it's brilliant. The talks are brilliant. The stories are brilliant. And the one thing that people don't get about this conference is that it's actually also like a healing process for many of these people, because they are telling stories that they haven't been able to tell before. Things that have happened to them, or things that's happened with people close to them, or with clients, etc., etc. So it's not all about financial planning. It's also about personal growth, personal perseverance, personal challenges, and overcoming those things. It's the most incredible conference to attend. So those tickets are going live later today, and we'll be sending out an email to everybody with that as well. So we've kept the ticket prices the same as last year. So it's much lower than any of our other events. But the reason is because we want everybody to get access to that. We are still finalizing the agenda. So also know that because of the nature that people go through the process to learn, to craft their message, to come up with a title, etc., the agenda gets released very short, close to the time of the actual conference. So please note that. All I can tell you is that you don't want to miss this. Forget about the agenda. Yes, we are applying for CPD. Yes, we're doing all those things, but you want to be there. This is absolutely amazing. Yes, we will record it. Yes, we will do all the stuff that you always ask. Yes, yes, yes. So don't stress about it. We will share that link with you a little bit later today. So that's the first one. Second point, the upcoming, we finalized everything. We've got the dates. We've got everything is in place. And it starts the 11th of June in Propulsion. We've got Kim Potgieter doing a client connection masterclass. We are going to talk in depth, not just only from a theoretical point of view, but also from practical experience point of view. You know, for those of you that do follow Kim, I've been following her for a long time. I had the privilege to talk to her quite a few times. And she loves traveling all over the world to go and learn directly from people who are writing the books, people who have implemented this, who's figured it out. And she goes directly to them to go and learn from them and then come back and implement it in their business, which is highly successful. So our members in Propulsion are going to have the opportunity to work with Kim at no additional cost. So it's just your monthly membership fee, and you get access to this 5-week program, right? So it's an hour a week live. You get to talk to Kim directly. You get to interact and learn with her from all of the amazing things that she's seen and that she's done. So you want to come and be part of that. So if you're not a part of Propulsion, the link is down below. We'll always include the link. But propulsion.co.za/community, where you can find out more about the community. It's not only Kim's thing. There's also other things which I'll just share with you now, and many other, like attending the Global Financial Planning Conference, also at no additional cost. So it's amazing. Like the benefits are just far outweighing the 350 Rand a month that you pay. Righty, so that's that. So in the connection masterclass, we're talking about midlife, how to navigate that, how to help clients. What about yourself? If you're in midlife, you're going to get a lot out of that. So I'm not missing any of those. And then we're also talking about shame and empathy, because that's something that a lot of people deal with. We're going to talk about money stories and people's own money stories. We're going to get into that. We will talk about, what else are we talking about? We're also talking about retirement and sort of other, just how to approach it differently. You know that you wrote a book called Retirement. So really looking forward to that. And there's one other thing which escapes my mind right now, but doesn't matter. So have a look at it. We'll also be sending out some more details on that again. So do join us for that. And then lastly, this started this week and we're continuing next week with the Microsoft Teams for advisory firms. Already the feedback, the first session was purely around the fact that, how do you think about technology? And it was all about the fact that Teams can become your hub, your working hub, and just some of the things that you can do. From next week on, we get into very specific details, from setting up, creating your teams and your channels and all those kinds of things, all the way through to how to really incorporate apps and how to even be productive on the go. And all of those things we'll cover over the remaining 5 weeks. So this is done by Richard de Villiers. This is what he does. He's really a great presenter. And the feedback on the first session was just like, whoa, that's amazing. It surpassed my expectations. So also available to Propulsion members. You member, you get access to that. You don't pay for that in addition to your monthly membership fee. Anyway, so much. Righty, I've stolen a lot of time this morning. Next up, we are going to talk to Tim Slatter. And we're probably going to go over time. I'm just warning you. If you have to go at 9, that's fine. But I might go over a little bit. And then you're welcome to come and watch the rest of it as well, because it is being recorded. Right, Tim, if you're ready, I'm ready. Sorry for making you wait. Here we go. This is almost unbelievable, Tim, like 5 years in, and here we are finally. Thank you very much for joining us here on Propulsion Live this morning.
Thanks, Francois. It's amazing to be with you in the community here.
Fantastic. I'm really looking forward to a great discussion. There's loads of questions I want to ask you. I'm going to try and get to most of them. For those of you that don't know Tim, Tim, like if you follow him on LinkedIn, you'll see him on LinkedIn because he does what he says others should do, which is brilliant. He's a practitioner taking his own medicine from my point of view, if you will. And not only that, he's forever learning and trying things and saying things and asking things. And that's one of the big things that I think stands out from Tim. But Tim, in your own words, just tell us a little bit about yourself, what it is that you do, and then we'll get into the conversation.
Fantastic. So we, in a nutshell, help financial planners keep in touch with their clients. We went on a journey, and Terence, you said he was the first person to respond to your LinkedIn post on this morning's session. He was the first person to sign in, and he was the first planner to sign up with us. And a lot of what we do and created in our service called Contato was shaped through early conversations with Terence. We did pilot work with him for a good 6 to 12 months, just trying to find what works, what doesn't work, and trying to build a communication strategy that does attract, connect, and engage with clients. As you said earlier in the show, we can shout. Getting a message out there is often not difficult. The challenge is getting that reciprocity, getting that connection. And I come from a PR background. I worked as a pastor for a little while. I have a family setup where we work together, we school together, we homeschool our kids. That's part of my son's desk behind us. Connection, close ties, intimacy, meaning, value, authenticity have always been very close to the way we live our lives. And I started bringing that to the way we help financial planners communicate. And it really resonated with a section of the profession that focuses on valuing relationship first and creating a client-centric communication approach. And then in 2016, which I think was one of the first times you and I ever kind of chatted online through some texts through LinkedIn, we started investigating how we could engage with more financial advisors. And it's just built from strength to strength from there.
Yeah, it's brilliant. And well done on that. It's hard to build a business and to convince people of the value and to show like it's hard. So I definitely commend you for that and for sticking to your guns. Let's start off. Like yesterday, I was in a conversation. Well, I got in at the sort of butt end of that conversation, but I caught some of it. It was an online meeting, and people were like discussing about what's brand and what brand isn't. And then suddenly they just said, "So Francois, what do you think a brand is?" And I'm like, "Okay, here's my thoughts." But I want to start off by asking you, before we start talking about why it is important to have an online brand specifically, just how do you define brand? Whether it's now personal or business, just what is brand when you hear the word brand? How do you explain that to people?
So brand is very similar to reputation. And then inside of that, you typically have marketing and PR. But brand is, for me, your core message. It's that thread of authentic uniqueness to who you are and what you bring to any conversation. And, when we live with integrity, we're living to our full purpose is how I understand integrity. And when we start to understand that and marry that with how we're showing up in the world and starting to reconcile what's going on inside us and what's showing up outside of us, that's ultimately what the brand is what people are seeing on the outside of us. And it can be marketing campaigns, it can be PR campaigns, it can be a logo. It's all of that and a lot more, which I think we'll chat a bit about in some of the questions.
Yeah, I really love that. And if I can sort of summarize that, it's like, for me, it's like, it's what do people think when they hear your name, and probably what they feel when they hear your name as well, what goes with that. That's really what brand is for me. So it's how you show up. It's whether you're recognizable and whether you stand out and all this stuff. But I think if you really break it down, it's like, what is the first thought that comes to mind when people hear Tim Slatter? And what do they then feel towards Tim Slatter or Slatter Communications or Contato or whatever that brand is? So one of the things that you're very big on is also saying, well, you need an online brand. And I know there's people in the audience that feel exactly the same. I feel the same, like it's so important at the moment. But can you just explain to us a little bit why you think it's crucial for financial planners to have an online brand? Because I still talk to advisors who go like, there's two people who visit my website, me and my mom. And my mom doesn't really visit my website. So, I just fly below the radar. Our clients love us. All this stuff is cool. but they don't do that still today. And I just want to sort of hear from you why you feel it is actually important to venture out into the online world.
Absolutely. So I think very early on, and I think Terence helped me understand this for financial planners, is that it's very important to have a personal online brand. And I'd like to just stress that word personal. And I know later on when I met Cobus Klein, that was something that he also resonated with, and our messages aligned in that vein. I found that a lot of financial advisors were often in a situation where they were part of a bigger brand that wasn't necessarily them when they were showing up online. So there's different levels to branding, because there's the brand, which is how you show up, but then there's your online brand, which is how you're specifically showing up online. And in that space, we often speak to an integrated online brand. So website's part of it, but then how you're sparking ongoing conversations is also part of it. How you're found through social media and search engines is another part of it. How you're using direct messaging is also part of that integrated brand, because your clients in today's world will never just engage with you in one of those spaces. And they'll also typically never just engage with you online. They'll also engage with you offline. So you want to have symmetry through all of those, which is then where the overarching brand comes in. I hope I'm not making it too complicated. But for me, it's stressing a personal online brand, because that immediately starts to get guys to think, okay, so how am I showing up? If someone Googles me, what does that look like? And that, it's important for a financial advisor, because it's the first point of contact that potential clients will have with you that you control. So they can find you on other websites, potentially the history of where you've worked. You're probably showing up in other spaces. But having a personal brand is saying, this is who I am right now. This is how I bring value to a conversation. And it's an opportunity to establish credibility and trust, which are really fundamental in this profession. Trust doesn't just happen. Trust isn't something, it's not a word you use and go, you can trust me because blah, blah, blah. Trust is a process. And it's a result of getting to know someone and liking them. And then we start to trust them. So I think, maybe in a nutshell, to say an effective personal online brand ensures that when potential clients search for you, your profile and your name and your brand comes up as prolifically as possible. And then it reinforces you as being reputable, relevant, relatable, and trustworthy as an option for them.
And also, I think what's important is that trust is an ongoing process. So trust is not the result.
Absolutely.
It's something, it's almost like a garden, right? You can't plant some nice seeds and then up pops the flowers and then you leave it. Like, it doesn't last forever, right? You got to work on it continuously. Yes. One of the things that I think if we think about this, there's obviously many different strategies, etc., that one can follow. And again, there's two parts to it. And I think the easiest part to actually address, and what you were saying now, is like, how do I show up when people are looking for me? And am I driving that narrative, or is somebody else driving that narrative? Which is something I think is so important. You want to take control, which you mentioned earlier. But my big question is, like, there's two ways that people are going to search for you, right? So there's the one is who you are. So I'm going to go type in Tim Slatter and I want to find out and see what Tim is about. Or I'm looking for somebody like Tim, which is two very different things. And I want to know whether one strategy talks to both, or and which one should you maybe worry about more? Where do you start? Like, there's a bunch of questions just in that sentence. But just maybe if we can talk about that a little bit.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, you're almost asking about SEO at this point. Is that correct?
Yeah, I won't necessarily say SEO. It's just, I think, an overall strategy. Like, is it important to drive what people find when they're looking for you specifically, or is it more important to focus on, when they are looking for somebody like you that do what you do, but you want to be the one. So that's probably where SEO will come in as one of the strategies.
Yes.
But I mean, where specifically when you're starting off with this, and also, does it depend where I am in my client or in my business journey? Like, when I'm brand new, I have no clients. Do I do something different? Like, just sort of your thoughts on those things.
Absolutely. So I have found in our experience that working off your personal value proposition and what makes you different in the way you approach financial planning is the most valuable point for advisors to start from, simply because the way algorithms work on search engines and social media works, when you look at so if you say someone who does something similar to me in this profession, it's huge. There are just so many people who are either just claiming to do what you do, and then you at the back, in the back office are saying, oh, but you guys don't do anything like what we do. The challenge is that your clients don't know that yet, and your prospects don't know that yet. Prospects often come into this journey seeing the industry and not realizing that there's an undercurrent of professionalism that's trying to drive the ethics and the morality and the compliance and the actual client experience and the deliverables that are truthful and honest. And you've got to break through those layers. So the approach is also just to hold in mind that your online brand is not a silver bullet. Having a website, having blogs, having any of these strategies doesn't mean you're going to definitely grow your business and you're going to, have all the clients you've ever dreamed of having. They're a step in the journey. They're part of a much bigger process of running a business. As you said just now, Francois, starting your own business is tough. And it's tough because there are so many moving parts. And what is becoming clear in today's age is that online communication is a massive cog in that whole machine. So as you're creating an online brand, I always say start out from the bat, understanding what makes you unique, trying to find your voice and your message, because and that almost speaks to what a brand narrative is. A brand narrative is something that's all-encompassing. So when I need to answer a client, when I see a conversation happening, if I'm coming in, like you said yesterday, at the tail end of an online engagement, how do I show up in such a way that people are like, oh, this person sounds interesting, number one, and number two, it sounds like they do what I want them to do. Because in the online space, it's so overwhelmingly full of information, and financial advisors are no longer gatekeepers of information. They're gatekeepers of value. And the way they become gatekeepers of value is understanding what a client can do and understanding what a client needs, and then marrying those two along a journey. And that's something that can't be explained in one website. It can't be explained in one article or social media post, which is why consistency and ongoing posting and sharing your narrative on a regular basis, talking to your brand and how you add value and what you do makes a lot of sense. And then when people engage with you, you're actually showing up as that. And they're like, this is exactly what I read in your post. This is exactly what I saw on your website. It makes sense. And then they start to trust you. And you said, if they keep having those episodes of, this guy is coming through for me, this lady is really fulfilling on her promises, then you build that trust relationship over a long time. And then the online presence of what you're creating is more searchable, because now when people are looking online, because you've been saying these things, because you've got people who are also giving you recommendations, you've got testimonials, you've got various different moving parts, you've commented on posts, you've been on podcasts, you've spoken at events at your local school or church or whatever it looks like, and they all start to play into how this person is set apart from the other options that are available to me. Does that answer that question?
Yeah, brilliantly. And I love the thing that we are gatekeepers of value and not information, because I think we still think that information is the thing. A lot of us are still thinking that information is the thing, but that gatekeeping, and that's a whole episode. We can probably unpack something, that in greater detail. But what are some key elements of a great online communication strategy specifically? And also just maybe briefly, we talk a lot about online and that. Do you differentiate between what is marketing and what is communication, or are they one and the same thing, Tim, just before we get into what the key elements are?
So I differentiate between marketing and PR. Both use communication. So communication is the cornerstone of happy relationships. But so for me, marketing speaks more to product or event or a packageable item that we then have an ROI metric, so return on investment. So I spent X amount on marketing this event or marketing this product. How many have I sold? How many tickets have I got? How much response have I got? PR is more of an ongoing relationship exercise. And I often use the example of a coffee shop. If you walk into a new coffee shop that's just opened down the road, they've been open for maybe 2 weeks, the latest bootlegger, and you walk in and the floors are a bit sticky, and you notice kind of the windows weren't super clean, like someone's stuck their face on it and a kid's been playing around with sticky fingers, and you don't smell the coffee. You're like, are your machines working? Is it load shedding? What's the vibe? The cakes and the confectionery, maybe there's a fly buzzing around, you're going to walk straight out of there. But if you walk into a coffee shop and it's clean, there's a buzz, there's a vibe, the colors are great, you can smell the coffee as you walk in, there's just all these gorgeous looking confectionaries, there's a buzz, there's free Wi-Fi, blah, blah, blah. The music is jazzy and it's just hip and happening. You're going to keep coming back and you're going to tell your friends about it, right? And so that's, for me, how PR shows up in your online brand, is you feel fresh, you feel current. People are like, oh, you're around, you know what you're talking about. I want to hear what you have to say. And so as we approach an online brand, we look more in the PR side of things. And, I'm glad you asked about strategy, because so many of us jump into online without a strategy, because online feels accessible. It feels it's cheap, it's free. Just sign up for a LinkedIn, a TikTok, an Instagram, a Facebook, a Pinterest. And before we know it, social media is actually like a psychological drug, and it's actually really dangerous and harmful to us if we don't have boundaries and a strategy in place. It's almost like smoking was in the 1940s, 50s, and 60s. You watch these old movies, and it's just they go from cigarette to cigarette to cigarette. And I think at one point it was actually called the cigarette century, until people realized, well, hang on a sec, well, maybe this prolific smoking is not the greatest idea for us. And we need to know that going into online communication, and specifically the social media portion of it, is without a strategy, it can run away from us. And really, without boundaries, it does become harmful. It starts to ruin our lives, it starts to run our lives, and then what are we doing there? Then there's no point. So my approach to strategy, it comes from my PR degree. We were taught many different ways to build strategies. And for me, the 5 W's and the H always resonated, because it was also what we were told whenever we're writing a news article. We have to answer those 5 W's and the H in the first paragraph to get people hooked. And if they don't read any further, at least they've got the nuts and the bolts, right? And I found when we marry that with creating an online brand, it's very helpful to know what I'm saying, who I'm saying it to, and why I'm saying. So that's where the communication and the message comes in, right? It's all about what I'm saying, what I'm communicating. And I split the 6 letters into 3. And the first 3 is knowing your audience, knowing your message, and knowing your why. Because that's something that you can hold on to, and that anchors you in your business. It anchors you in the next 3. And the next 3 is the how, the when, and the where. And so that's where we then say, okay, cool, I can do it with a website, I can do it with a LinkedIn page, I can do it with a profile me, I can do it with whatever it looks like. And I can use blogs, and I can use newsletters, and then you can start to put these tools in place. Because technology, and Francois, I'm sure this will resonate with you, technology is not a strategy. Technology is a tool. And so often we come and think, oh, technology is going to save my business. We've just got to jump onto this and employ technology. And that becomes the strategy. And that's when it's very dangerous, because it runs away and it becomes expensive very quickly. But technology is the tool we use inside of our strategy with some other tools to help us engage with clients. Because for me, at the end of the day, we want to spark conversations with clients. That, for me, is the metric of what we do, is how many clients are getting in touch with you when they are ready to work with their financial plan. And that typically will be only 5 to 10 clients, depending on your book, obviously, but it's a small number. And often guys go into this thinking, I've got to have the strategy to speak to hundreds of people all the time. And you don't. You just need a strategy to be present to the people who want to speak to you and engage with you when they feel they want to show up.
Yeah, I really like it. Talking about that, let's just briefly talk a little bit about the services that you offer, Tim. Because there's obviously, like, you can do all of this stuff yourself, or you can outsource it to somebody like you and your business. So just talk me a little bit through Contatto. Am I saying that correctly, or what's the right way to pronounce? Because like it's always like, you know, when you're Afrikaans, like you can come up with weird and wonderful ways of pronouncing something. So what's the right way?
Yeah, so it's Italian, and I've never heard an Italian person say it, so I don't probably even know the right way. I call it contatto. I would imagine an Italian would go contatto, you know, and you have the hands and everything. It's contatto.
Yeah, I love it.
And it literally just means in contact. You know, we'd been working with, as I said, Terence and a couple of other planners, and it started off as Financial Planners Network, FPN, because it was going to be this community of planners that were learning to communicate and engage. And it slowly became us doing everything for the advisors and realizing they actually had very little time. And we had to create this full end-to-end solution that I don't have a website, I don't have blogs, I don't have time to tell you what to do. Can you just make it happen? And so that's kind of how Contato grew and started. And in a nutshell, there are three key elements to what we do. And it's the stuff that we've found works really well as an outsourced service. And that's building a website, keeping it up to date with blogs, and distributing monthly emails. We're able to do all of that very successfully without the client feeling like you're not doing it. You know, I always, you know, acknowledge that if they dug in deeper and they're like, hey, you know, who's doing this for you? They would know it's not you. But most people in today's world accept that we have teams who help us with communication, marketing, and branding. The three areas that we're helping you show up is building a website, revamping a website, writing blogs. We've got white labeled solutions, which keeps it far more affordable, but we also do custom. So a couple of our clients, and I can see some of them are even on this call today, have custom blogs. We're writing either 1 to 4 blogs a month, and that aligns with their specific value proposition, their messaging. And then there's a monthly newsletter that gets distributed through a MailChimp platform. So your clients feel like, hey, you're sending it to me. And it's personalized, it's customized, so the client's name appears in there. And the whole point is just to create this perception, because that's what PR is about. It's about managing perceptions, that you are available and you're accessible and you're being proactive. You're not being reactive. So a lot of clients only hear from their advisors when, you know, the NH Bull gets launched, or NHI Bull, or Steinhoff tanks, or, you know, something tragic happens and like, oh, don't panic, we've got you covered. And they're like, who are you again? So you kind of want the strategy where, oh, of course, you know, if something happens, I expect Dave to reach out and tell me what's going on. I expect him to reach out and tell me what's happening. And so that's how the strategy really adds immense value to advisors. And then the fourth area is showing up on social media. And one of the challenges with showing up on social media is content. And because we're creating this bedrock of content, it's a lot easier to quickly show up consistently on social media. I have an approach that I call the 3 minutes 3 times a week. One of our clients said, hey, why can't it be 3 minutes 3 times a day? And I was like, Mike, absolutely, it can be 3 minutes 3 times a day, but I don't want to scare people off and think, oh, I can't do that. But when you've got a content strategy in place, when you've got a website that you're proud of, when you know that you can engage with people and say, hey, can I add you to my database? And that there's a newsletter that will actually go out every month. It's not like, well, I'm sure it'll go out this month, but then 6 months later, oh, I haven't done my newsletter yet. You know that consistently you're going to show up with these prospects and they're going to be hearing from you, and they'll reply and go, hey, so glad you got in touch with me again. I'm ready to chat. And that then comes straight to you. And then you can step in and start to deliver on what your value proposition looks like. And so from a client experience perspective, it's seamless. But there's lots of moving parts in the background.
Yeah, really love it. So talking about digital platforms, you know, let's move on a little bit. You mentioned SEO a little bit earlier. You know, is that something that advisors and planners should be concerned with still today? If you think about, like, many people are starting to use things like ChatGPT and Claude and Perplexity and those kinds of tools as search engines, actually, instead of going to Google. Does that mean that SEO is still relevant? And what is SEO? Maybe just very briefly. You know, just what do they need to know about that?
So SEO is search engine optimization. It's different to SOE, which is a government enterprise. So SEO is a process of algorithmic functions that when people search for something on any platform now, because they all use AI, they all use similar kinds of processes, they find the answers for the searcher that will most likely give them a hit in the top 5 to 10 responses. So when it comes to financial planning, our experience, and I mean, this can change like that, but so far our experience has been that people, when they're looking for a financial planner, and they're at a moment where they actually want to have a heartfelt conversation, go, you know what, my life's a mess, or I've got this amazing opportunity, I don't want to stuff it up, I need to speak to someone who's going to understand me, you know, and that's where the whole gatekeeper of value comes in. I want someone who understands me. I don't want just, you know, a cookie cut model. I don't want this. And, you know, I don't want a call center. I don't want a chatbot. I want to speak to someone I can hold accountable, someone who's going to hold my hand through this. A lot of people first start by asking their friends and colleagues, who do you use? And that's often the first way of searching for an advisor, not going to Google saying, I'd like a financial planner in Takai or in Santon or in Gordons Bay or whatever it looks like. And so now the search engine optimization works on keywords, and keywords can be to who you are, the service you provide, the area you're in, the products you work with, any of those things. And the challenge, again, as I said earlier on, with financial advice and advisors in this profession is that it's prolifically overwhelmed. So there are so many people doing what you do, selling products that you sell. So having SEO for financial advisor, for your area, anything like that is very difficult to actually get any hits. You know, when we worked with Terence, I think after several years, we managed to get him onto page 9 for financial advisor in Santon. And and he was actually the first advisor to come up, the first personal brand to come up. Everything before that were corporate brands and company brands. Old Mutuals, Discoveries, Liberty, Momentum, all of that. They govern the first 9.5 pages. And that's volume, size, paid for ads, etc. So the second thing is, well, what is your name? And then what you do. So you might be André Steenkamp, and there are so many André Steenkamps in this industry. So that's your number one challenge is I'm one of many André Steenkamps in South Africa, but I'm also one of many André Steenkamps in financial planning. So André Steenkamp, financial planner, and then at least you've got a good chance of coming up quite high. We've got clients whose names are the same as like American boxers or baseball players, and you Google them, you're like, oh, you know, how does this link? So the SEO is to say, what is my name and what do I do? So you've got those two coming up. And that's why a website with your personal brand is also hugely valuable, coupled with a LinkedIn profile, because LinkedIn has the highest domain authority, which is part of the search engine algorithm checks, is what is the domain authority of that site. But your website, if you're populating your website with blogs, Google will go, hey, there's this website that says Tim Slatter, and there are 400 pages on it. And they're 400 pages because you've been blogging for 6 years. And it goes, this is probably quite high. So now in the top 5 searches, you might get the other Tim Slatter, but then you'll also get Tim Slatter on LinkedIn, and you'll get Tim Slatter on this website. And guys like, oh, that, and then they can see, okay, my face pops up, or Contato pops up, or whatever. And it's the same for a financial advisor. Your face will pop up. Yep, that's the guy I'm looking for. And then they'll see financial planner in Pretoria. And they go, oh yeah, my cousin said he lived in Pretoria, and this is the guy I'm looking for. And that is essentially the 3 key elements that you want when you're building your online brand to come up, because that's the only touch point that people will see. They're not going to sit for hours poring over every single result. If you don't come up quickly, you're stuck. The advantage is that you can then start to show up on other search platforms like social media, because then they might not find you on Google, but then they'll go look for you on LinkedIn, because are you professional? They're going to want to see if you've got a profile. In terms of showing up on something like Claude or ChatGPT, who can now do searches, it's still early days, and it has a lot more to do with how much information out there has your name attached to it. Then it'll find it. And I think currently people are using platforms like ChatGPT more to help them understand what questions they should be asking of the advisor, and to understand what options they might have, so that when they speak to the advisor, it adds up and they're like, oh yeah, no, that makes sense. This is what I actually need to do. Does that answer that question?
There's obviously lots to answer in that question. Again, a whole episode on its own to really get into that.
Absolutely.
One big question that a lot of people have, and it's a question that's been floating around, I think, for a long time, is Facebook still a viable place to be?
If you ask me, no. That's my quick answer. But there are caveats to that. I find Facebook works well if you are selling product. So if you've got a book that you're selling, if you've got a course you're selling, some kind of online module that you help people work through, if you're speaking at an event and you want to sell tickets to it, Facebook can be helpful. But for the most part, our experience is that Facebook is only followed by friends and family. And, you know, when I look at advisor pages, I typically only see the same names coming up, and you find that they're married to the people in the organization, and they're the marketing people who are actually posting the stuff. Facebook is a challenge because you can't easily search for new people in a profession. And all the advisors we work with are quite clear to me. They are working with professionals, high net worth individuals, people who are in accounting, people who are engineers, people who are teachers, and they come and they say, we work with doctors, or we work with this. And if you go to Facebook and you try to find people with that kind of segmentation, without paying for Facebook ads, it's very tricky to do that. But when you go to LinkedIn, you're able to, because everyone puts their CV information on LinkedIn. So it's much easier than say, I want to work with people who do this. Another area where Facebook can work is if you are in a community of like-minded people, so mom entrepreneurs, for example, or mommy bloggers, and they often, you know, stick together and refer each other and work well, and they form these communities. If you're part of that kind of community, then it can work really well. But otherwise, Facebook, you know, we tried it for 3 years running pages for advisors, and not a single page worked. We tried many different routes. Since then, we've had a couple of advisors insist they want to do Facebook. We've run competitions, we've done various things, and it always walks, you know, we always come away from it thinking it didn't hit the mark, it didn't achieve what we hoped it would achieve.
Yeah. So, Tim, any other wisdom you want to impart today that you want to leave people with after this conversation?
I think, you know, I often see this in a very similar frame to investing money. You're investing credibility, you're investing online real estate. And, you know, if you say to your clients who don't have any investment, you know, what's your first tip to them? It's just start today. Even if it's $500, just start today. And I think that's the same thing I would say to advisors is, even if it's just putting a little post out there today, or just saying, I need to rethink my website, or, you know, put a plan in place today where every day you can think about, how am I showing up online? Because if you don't intentionally show up online, you're going to be showing up as something that you're not intentional about. Because you're out there, whether you like it or not, you've got this brand, and you're either sharing someone else's brand, or you're sharing your brand. And if you're not intentional about today, what am I going to do differently today? It's never going to change. We speak to advisors all the time. We've been saying, oh, Tim, I've been following you on LinkedIn for 4 years, and we finally need to do this. You know, I've got guys who I've done 3 quotes for since 2020 or 2019, and every 2 years they come back, oh, we're ready. And then you give them a quote, and they're like, okay, cool, we'll get back to you next week. And then I don't hear from them for 12 months. And then when they eventually do start, they're like, oh, well, you know, we should have done this 4 years ago. So I think, you know, if that's the last thing I can leave with, it's just start today doing something intentional about, how am I communicating who I am and what I'm doing for the people in my life.
Yeah, that's absolutely brilliant. What a note to end off on. Tim, thank you very, very much. I shared Tim's LinkedIn link down below in the description, so you can easily connect with him on LinkedIn. LinkedIn these days are like the easiest way. Like I always ask my guests, where can people get hold of them? And they all say, well, the best place is LinkedIn. So I just add the LinkedIn link. I will also add the Contato, you know, links and things to Tim's website. But go and connect with Tim on LinkedIn. If you're not following him or connected with him, go and do that. But Tim, thank you very much for all the the wisdom and things that you have shared with us today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And job well done.
Thanks, you. Very much appreciated. Thank you, Francois.
Thanks very much. So that's it for today. Thank you very much for sticking around right to the end. I see many of you have stayed, so thank you so much. Next week, we'll be back, same time, same place. Until then, have a fantastic weekend. Stay safe, be blessed, and prosper. Remember to subscribe if you haven't yet. Share with others. They have to hear this message. And we'll see you back next week. Love you lots. Bye-bye.